Yes, a very good evening to you tuned into UBC TV. We thank you so much for watching all our work in terms of programs, news and everything. Here we are welcoming you to one-on-one with Micheal Jordan Lukomwa, and this year 2025 we are coming in with a bang, discussing different programs, different topics, but of course in a different way, real stories and things like that. Now, every year on the 26th of January, we have a national celebration in remembrance of the day the national resistance movement captured power to govern Uganda. It was the day that a bush war, protracted struggle as it's normally called, came to an end, marking the start of the leadership of the NRM in Uganda. That was in 1986. There are people who were born in that year. This is just information that the year only. And 1986, that's when we came. 96, we had elections. 2000, but the start of the whole journey was on the 26th of January, 1986. That day is celebrated because it has a lot of historical connotations that connect with it. Now, it ended a war that started around 1980.
Yes.
It is a 5 years war that ended in 1986, and different people have different stories due to how this war connected to them, or they got connected to the war. We have talked to the fighters so many times. We have talked to people who are doing different things in the war. This evening, I am bringing you somebody who is a war child, somebody who was in the community where the war was, and she's going to tell us what she saw, what her story was, where she ended up, how affected she was, or up to now she is. And then we shall look at time after the war. Was it one for Uganda? My guest is Hajat Shekat Radia Namakula. She is the Secretary for Women and Children Affairs, Uganda Muslim Supreme Council, but also a war child of that period. In one of the discussions we had with her, she hinted it, and when this day approached, I thought about talking to her to share her story, because I'm sure there are so many other people that have the same stories. I have your own here.
Yeah.
Hajat, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
First of all, differentiate for us a war child and a child soldier.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year, first of all. A war child is a child whose community was affected by the war. A war came when you were in a certain community and the war took place. But a child soldier somehow is sometimes armed participant in the fight itself. Sometimes they're armed, they get arms to use, and they are recruited into the army or the guerrillas or something like that. So
when did you get to know? How old were you when the war started?
When the war started, I was 8.5 years.
That's 1980.
No, it was not 80. In my area, it started in 1982.
Okay.
That's what I remember. And I'm from Mende Kalema, a famous place in Wakiso district. And I'm a last born of a family of 10. And I'm from there. So in 1982, January, I was promoted to P4.
Okay.
And now we went to school as usual. It was a day school. I could go and come back. And now somewhere, maybe, was it March, a month later, it was a Monday. That's what I remember. We went to school and the head teacher came and told us, good morning children, we have no school today because we have no space, we have no classrooms. The classrooms have been occupied by asylum seekers from the neighboring villages. We have people from Garamba, we have people from those areas, and they slept here, so we have nowhere to study from.
Okay.
And it was almost 9 o'clock. We ran home, we ran back home.
Which school is that? In that
Imam
area?
Nawawi Primary School.
Is it still there?
It's a Quran school. It is still there.
Okay.
So we went back home and told Mom, they said there's no school. Abantu bazze, there are people in the school and we have nowhere even to sit. This was a very big group of people. We had women, we have children, we were crying. And now what Mom did, he said, but oh, poor people, what are they eating? That was the first question. And now, I don't know how the communication was, but people of the village started taking food to school, to our school. Those who had the jackfruit, mangoes, whatever they had, cooked food, they supported them. That was the first trauma that I got. We were sent back home because the classrooms were full of asylum seekers from the internally displaced people. But from still within, from neighboring areas. It was neighboring, but we didn't used to move a lot. Yes. And you know, in a rural area, the neighboring village, one person could have about 30 acres of land. Then exactly. So when they then a neighboring village, it is a bit far. Some good kilometers. Others had swollen feet. Because they had walked. Because they had walked, children. Others have their goats going around. That was the first trauma that I went through. So I went home and we didn't study. We continued not studying. You left school? We left school. To create space for asylum seekers. And the Bataka, all the people, the residents sat, the elderly sat and said, how are these children going to study what? As they were sorting out that, my father, my late father, was a safari man. He could go and supply goods and then come back. So that time he was not around. When he came back, got the story, and he was one of the directors of the school, and said, no, we need to think ahead. That's what he said. We need to plan ahead. These children must go and get a school elsewhere, not anywhere nearby. And he started planning. As we were seated at home, more people were coming in. More people were coming into the village, unknown faces. And then myself, I was taken to Jinja. Because my father used to work with the BAT in Jinja some time back, some years, so he had a good network there. We were taken to Jinja in a school called Jinja Islamic Institute. Did you hear the sound of the gun? Did you see some fighters? What kind of... In the next village. Like you could hear bullets, maybe sound of the gun. Today, like it sounds like it is 5 kilometers away. Then tomorrow it sounds like 3 kilometers away, something like that. Coming closer. Coming closer. And then there was a confusion which I really understood very well. The people who were in the school, the asylum seekers and the villagers, were accused of being rebels against the government. And now government sent lorries of soldiers, and they told us they are here to safeguard you. So we are between a rock and a hard place, and these soldiers could not speak any local language, could just pass there and goes away. Then tomorrow they bring another one. They were all over the village. So as if government was accusing people of being rebels, but also the rebels accused the people of working with government. That is where the real trouble came from. No sooner had we been taken to Jinja, my parents stayed back, and we had like a homestead. We had brothers who built a house there, then the aunties and the what, and we didn't have phones. Then they came to Jinja to visit us around April. Let's go, and we were 4 siblings, and I was the youngest. So they told us what is Mende. Mende is no longer there. They bombed the whole village. They bombed our house. they bombed everybody, including cows and goats, and the village is no longer exists.
So who had bombed Mende?
Mende was between a rock and a hard place. As I told you, it is the government of the time that bombed Mende, accusing it of being a village of Abayekera.
Okay.
And now the Abayekera were not also trusting the people of Mende because soldiers were all over. So it was a war field.
Why do you think this was the case? Because there were local people and asylum seekers. Why do you think the government got to doubt you people?
The geographical location of Mende was one factor. Mende is about 23 kilometers from town.
Yes.
And Mende has a road through. Like you can go through Matuga, Semuto Road, enter through Sanga, and come to Mende.
Okay.
And then you can go through Wakiso town,
yes,
enter through Nkowe and come to Mende. Then while there, you can go through that very inner route and go and get out from Waka ahead.
Yes.
So it was very...
Waka to Dambwe, then Masulita.
Exactly. So it was very convenient. It was a very good strategic area. And as if both sides were fighting for it. So there was
government knew they were not safe.
They without
Mende
being
safe
on their side.
And the Bayekera also knew they needed Mende.
If you don't capture Mende, you are not winning the war.
So Mende, could we say Mende is part of the Luwero triangle, the larger Luwero triangle?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And the mindset of the people is that the Luwero triangle war affected Luwero as a district. No, Mende was more affected than that.
When you say Mende was more affected, what do you mean? Give us the
we
history.
suffered more than Luwero. Why? Because in our place was very strategic as far as war is concerned, as far as military science is concerned. You need to win it on your side. Luwero is about 50 kilometers from
town, yes.
And Mende is about 20. And it has exit routes. And in a war, you need that. And Mende was a village of, in our small Omuruka, was 100% Muslims almost. They could call it Chalo Chava Sukuli, the Muslim, the Sukuli people. And people were so connected, like this one is an in-law to this one is a brother to this one, the aunt of this one. We could make a village, but we are all almost related. Okay. So the war affected us most, and it ended last in Mende. Mende was still unstable when other areas have settled. So when we were in Jinja, we could get stories. On a sad note, my father was captured as he was struggling to come out of the village. He was captured, and we spent a full year without him. And the news came out that he was killed. As Muslims prayed the funeral prayer of the dead body. And we settled, we thought, Alhamdulillah, maybe God has called him. He appeared after 1 year.
After 1 year after the war had ended?
No, like he appeared from 82 to 83. He broke through and came back to Kampala.
Who had captured him? Did you find out as a family?
From his own mouth, he was telling us that he was captured and he was arrested in a, how they call it, like these prisons whereby you have, it looks like a short house when inside there is a ditch. And he was examined after year. You know, in according to my father, those the people in the bush had even law courts. People could be examined, could make statements and the like, and said they examined me until they found that I was innocent, and they let me go. So he came back after 1 year. So
who examined? Was it the rebel people, the rebels, or the government?
It was the rebels.
They thought he was a government collaborator.
As if, because he was in the hands of the rebels. But I don't know, is it the Chief Justice or something, like a highest ranking person, released him, acquitted him. And now we met him after 1 year when he was really in a very sorry state because of the distance that he walked. Can you imagine a distance from Wakiso, where Wakiso is? Yes. It was a danger zone. Kampala was ending around Namungona and a small part of Nansan. The rest was a danger zone. It was another government ruling there. That particular area. Now you can go up to Kakiri and those areas and the like. Then this side you could go to Bombo. Kampala was ending around the Bombo. And the other one was a danger zone. So we had the zones and they could call it a danger zone. So when I could come for holidays, I could come to my brothers in Kampala and stay with them. And then we are taken back to Jinja, Bugembe Islamic Institute. In the stories that you gathered, what happened to your childhood friends and all those other children within the area? You were lucky that your family could take you somewhere. Yes. What happened to other villagers, especially the children of your age? According to what I know, there are about 2 generations that do not exist in men. Death was just too much. There was a lot of killing, and in people of children of my age, a few who survived didn't go to school. They were married off at age 15 or 13 or something like that. Girls. Then the boys, some were kadogos, as you said. But there is a very serious gap in terms of education as far as my village is concerned. It was, people were looking for survival. Can I spend a day and then tomorrow I wake up? The things of education, healthcare were not discussed, were not an area of discussion. So in Mende, people, the girls of my age, first of all, are very few. Secondly, what do you mean there are very few? There was a lot of death. Okay. And they didn't go to school. And we cannot, when you look at them, I look 1,000 times younger than them. They are the elders in the village. Because of the situation? Because of the background. And then 86, when the government, when the rebels took over the government, people settled back around December 86, like that. But for us, we took another 3 years to settle back. We had that assumption that maybe it will. Some other thing may happen. Some other thing may happen. And we are saying, when I said, so and so has gone, this family has gone back. I said, we had enough of it. Because in 87, that's when my dad died. When the war had just ended, then but we went to bury him when we had no home. And you could see where the bedroom was, there is a very big tree that grew up. Where you had a balcony, maybe there is an anti-hill. So your family, very traumatizing. You lost a house. We lost a house. We lost property normally. We didn't lose family members. At least we survived. I remember when we went back in 89, December 89, to settle. My mother was digging, and then he saw a skeleton, not a full person, but a hand. And mother could say, oh, this is my Murefu. We had a man we called him Murefu, and he was keeping the few cows that we had. Oh no, Murefu. And I saw mother being devastated and said, let us dig a hole and we bury this bone. So it was as scary as that. Give us a story of the whole village now. The whole village was going through the same. But my family was a bit lucky. We didn't lose people. But others had that in addition to the lives lost. Do you remember of some families that lost people you knew? we had a neighboring land of Butazimbye. It is called the Butazimbye family. That one, it remained with nobody. Actually, after the war, they looked. People took years without knowing the relatives of that family to come and claim for the land. Later they appeared. They were killed, including the cows, the goats, the Bapakasi, the what. That family got over. And that is the neighboring land.
Just
next to our home. And then they could mention some people we knew, that so and so died during the war, so and so was killed, so and so was murdered, so and so got lost. We don't know whether he will come back, but later it was discovered they were dead. So death was random and was informal, and there were no burials. To add on that, people died of real diseases. Cholera, as they
because of the situation,
most malaria could kill those who are seeking for asylum. So what I don't know whether the people who had gone to seek asylum, I don't know where they went, but that school was bombed because government of the time came and like accused the school of hosting the rebels. It was bombed to ashes. And we went back when there's no school, when there's nobody.
Prior to the headmaster coming to announce to you.
Yeah.
Okay, you were young, but at least had you heard of anything like a war, possibility of a war within your area, or Bayekera walking around?
I didn't know the meaning of Bayekera. I didn't know anything about the war.
So the thing hit your mind? The headmaster sent you
because we could come with mother to Kampala to go to Mulago when we were sick, and I could see traffic people like stopping maybe the car, and whenever they could talk about a soldier, I thought soldiers are the traffic people. I didn't know that they are those soldiers.
Other types of soldiers.
Of the time. I had no idea whatsoever, but it is one thing that sparked off my memory, and it sparked off my memory, and I remember it very, very well. Even the teacher who announced it, headmaster of the time, is still living. Okay. He's still in Mende. So it is very devastating.
He must be a retired teacher.
Very retired, but very sober. Is doing that farming and the like. So it was real life. The worst thing that we lost was human resource. People died, really. I'm telling you, people died like mosquitoes.
Let's take a short break.
Do you hear it? Do you see it?
In Uganda, Tanzania.
That's the sound of business in a developing economy.
For UBC News,
Charlotte Amuge in Kampala.
Catch the weekly business roundup every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. only on UBC TV, inspiring Uganda.
Every marriage has 100% chances of succeeding. You know why? Because God created marriage, and God never creates failure, and God never designs anything to fail. Every marriage has 100% chances of succeeding. Is your marriage struggling and you're wondering whether it will ever succeed, whether you will ever make it, whether it's even worth holding on to? You got to tune into Unlocking Marital Bliss, because right here we provide the keys to unlock the bliss in your marriage, and you will be able to succeed. We've had testimonies, and lives are changing day by day.
marriage must be a discipline. It must not be handled like a casual thing.
As women, when we have the outward expression, even our form of respect is tied to the outward things that you do.
Some women now have working class. They don't know how to handle their husbands because the marriage has become like a question and answer marriage. Do you have any tea? Don't you have hands to prepare it? Why have you come back late? Did I take your blanket? It's question and answer marriage.
Not any other place, but every Sunday, 3 p.m., right here at UBC. With the one and only Cyrus Rod, not any other.
Unlocking marital bliss.
UBC one-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwa. We are trying we are listening to a story of a war child, someone who saw with her eyes the 1981-86 war that brought the NRM, which ended in 1986, a day we are going to celebrate this very week on Sunday. Her name is Hajat Radhia Namakula. She works with the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council, and she has the story. Ginger, when your dad was this side, your other part of, you told me the whole village was with your relatives. Now you have left everybody this side and you are in Ginger. I would call it displacement.
Yeah, we are internally displaced.
Exactly. So how was that, and how was life in Ginger, very far away from your people?
It was, I was very far away from my people.
Yes.
And when father did evacuate, but got out of that imprisonment, we stayed in Ginger as a family in rented houses. Myself, as a child, I was around maybe 11, 12. I got one challenge. I was so playful. I liked playing.
Just like any child?
Yeah, I liked playing. I could play and forget even to eat. But I had a challenge of a language. The children could speak Lusoga, and I didn't learn Lusoga.
You came in with your
and
Uganda.
Now with Uganda. And this is the time where this globalization had not yet come. Baganda stayed in Uganda, Banyoro stayed in Banyoro. You know, you looked like, I mean, why are you here anyway?
It took time for you to connect. It took
time for me to connect. And since I liked playing, I could just sit alone, very isolated. And one child could even tell you off, don't speak your Uganda here. So I just sat down and said, sincerely, can't I learn this language? And I started listening very well, listening. After 1 week, I could speak their language and got involved in the play.
You became a Musoga by affiliation?
I don't know by what, I could speak their language. I started speaking, and you know, it is very funny. Even if you learned it 2 days ago, nobody will accuse you of saying that you just learned. I could speak very fluently. Of course, they
recognize that you're just learning.
Yeah, learning, but you know, it answers their question. They no longer even isolate you.
So did you skip classes or you continued with education?
I didn't skip.
And how was that? Now the kind of education this side with people you don't know?
My father made sure that we get through, we get the very kind of education that we are going. It's the dual curriculum education. And when I went to Bugembe, Islamic Institute of Bugembe, I was given an interview and I passed very well. They gave me my P4, which I was going into this side, and I was a first-class student.
Can I say there was peace in that side of the country?
Yeah, there was peace. Apart from my playing habit, there was peace. And
in
now,
that side of the country?
That side of
all
the
was
country.
okay?
All was okay. We could learn and go home and learn, eat food, go home, eat mangoes and the like. As a day school. Bugembe was a third world school, which can be afforded by the lowest person or parent. But we went through the real system.
But people in Ginger used to get information about what was happening in Kampala and the Buganda area.
Yeah.
Through radio, through what?
That time, father could come to Kampala to trade. He was a businessman, but also a sheikh. He could come and meet people and then comes back and tell us, Munange so-and-so died, Munange so-and-so, I had this information, I met so-and-so. And the people of Ginger were also traumatized because they thought, I mean, how do you leave your home? Why did you insist and stayed back? You are saying you have no home. I mean, how? So it was difficult to explain, but my parents tried their best, their level best to keep the family intact. And we are a family, even when we are internally displaced. So another thing that happened, what I remember very well, it was in 85. 85, this is a time when Milton Obote was thrown off, and then the Tito Okello government came, a military government, and Busoga came on a standstill. Because when we were children, when we were still young, when Obote was still a president, we could be taken, when president is coming, you go and sing, and then sing for the president, and then they take you to school and the like. He was a frequent visitor of Busoga. When he was overthrown, there was a real fever in the region. What has gone? What is going? No, he's still around. No, that's a lie. We had one radio called Radio Uganda.
Yes.
And mother could switch on the radio and say, Kampala. And then you sit there and listen. Now the new president is General Tito Okello. Then Okello also lasted over for some months.
Then there came Basili or something.
Basili Okello and the like. So when President Museveni took over, we took like 2 days without any change, because people thought it's not true. Now after 2 days, after listening to it 2 days, then we start seeing young soldiers, child soldiers.
In Jinja?
In Jinja, walking around the village. And they were all over the place. And we are saying these children, they even, we are not used to soldiers speaking Luganda or in a local language. They were speaking Swahili. And we are saying these soldiers speak even Rusoga, others speak Luganda, but in uniform. And they could call them Kadogo. So when President Museveni took over, for us we thought maybe it would be like a Tito Okello who spent 6 months. The tension even increased. And one thing I also remember on Tito Okello's regime, there was unruly army. The soldiers could come and break into people's houses and take radios and the what. So that day, like that, when tomorrow, the following day is 26th, I think 24th night, rumor came in and said, today it is your village to be robbed. They will come at night and rob.
They could even warn.
Yeah, they could warn. And then our father told us, you wake up and pray at night tomorrow. We don't know whether they are going to slaughter our heads. We don't know, but they said this village. Then in the morning they announced that they have taken over government. And for us, we are very happy because that night was ours to be robbed.
It was your turn
It was our turn.
The wrath.
And like we said, oh, God has answered our prayer. They are not coming. It is a new thing altogether. So I remember that very story. So we stayed in that life until 89, because my father died late 88.
You said there was some peace in Jinja.
Yeah.
Not until now, the altercation of Obote
and the Tito, then Tito to President Museveni.
That's where you got some tension in Jinja.
It was tense. It was tense.
Now, 26th January 1986. How was that day?
For us, we got the liberation in Jinja on 28th. 2 days later.
2 days later, that's when the information came. How did it come? How did you receive it? And what was the response within the communities and in your house?
As a family, I told you it was our turn to be robbed. We received it very well, that at least there is some change. And then as a community, people were not even trusting. They said, he's also trying. Maybe the way Lutwa has tried. After 6 months, we shall have another president, and so on and so forth. But we had a shortage of water in the whole village, and the piped water was not there. So we had to look for water. And you could look for water in a swamp or where, and they say, please go into groups in case if you are killed,
there are people that will
come and communicate. And that time the soldiers of Obote were walking on foot from Kampala, wherever, heading to northern side. So they could hurt themselves and even shoot at some people who are, because they have been chased away. So those areas of Busoga and the subsequent areas, people died in that casual way because the soldier got tired and he shot everybody and he also killed himself. That fever remained there for some weeks. So when we went to look for water, they said, you go in 2 groups because we don't have even water to drink. And now, you know, crossing over to get the water is
into another
issue.
village.
You can fall into. Then there was looting. People looted things. I saw people running with people's property. They find you something and they take it away. But it didn't last for long. It didn't last for long.
So that was, let's say, the first 2 weeks of
January.
January 1986.
The last 2 weeks of January. The whole of January and almost Feb. We did also study. We started studying after Feb, around late Feb. We resumed the new year.
You said, some people said he will also fail.
Yeah, the mindset was.
So when do you now get the assurance that at least there could be some stability going forward?
Yeah, my father was a very informed person. He could maybe read gazettes, newspapers, could read the Nation, that Kenyan paper, he could read. And then it says, hey, you people, I mean, we have to go back. We have to go back and settle back.
In 86, that's when he started talking about that?
He started 87, around 87. He said, no, we have to go back. And I've made arrangements that I checked on our land. The land is still there. And people are settling back. And he developed some illness. He died of cancer in 88. So the whole of 87, he was planning, and he had built a small local house. And told us, you have to go back. Then he fell sick, taken to Mulago for some months, and then died. So when we went to bury him, we didn't have
You had not yet returned?
We had not yet returned. We had gardens, we had some space. But the village, the Abataka, they said, Sheikh Semakula was one of the founders of the school, and we need to bury her at the school, to bury him at the school. And his grave is at that school, which I told you about, where I went through. And then after burying him, that's when we got into our senses. I think the family said it is more vital now to settle back. So mother went back in 89.
With all of you?
After the death of my father. And when my father died, the director of the school said, you will study until you complete school. And I've given you bursary. And the school had primary and secondary on the same, almost the same campus. So I had to complete. I had to complete within that school. So we could go for holidays, and now mother is there. Things are normalizing slowly by slowly. But the unity that was in the village, we lost it a bit because there are so many accusations. So and so was the reason why the child of so and so was killed. She was those words, and people were scaring.
Everybody was
afraid of the
other.
other. Even the places where we went to, we sought asylum in like we came back with some habits maybe, and say, that one, don't play with him. He's no longer the one we knew. Such things. But we have overcome that, and we settled back.
What kind of a Uganda was it then, after 86? You saw the prior, starting from when the headmaster sent you from school. Now, 1986, 87, 88, 89, now you're even back at home and settled. What kind of a country would you remember?
I remember
a few years after the
very needy country. Uganda proved it to be very needy. We didn't have even sugar. Sugar, you could go to LC and register and get sugar.
That is the early days of the NRM.
Very needy, the early days. Soap, you could go and register and get soap. It was a very needy country. We didn't have even the essential commodities. Then from a political viewpoint, it was a tense country. Because people were thinking that we had never had a president who may leaders maybe without any instability, given the background of independence, Mutesa, Obote, I mean, those things. And people thought that anything will happen, including, they call what? Spectators. They say, me, I told you, hey, the remaining with still a few days. Next year you'll see it. Yeah. And then I remember I remember very well about the CA, the Constituency Assembly. They said, you go and advance. I don't want to stand. When the war comes, they will come for me. You remember the Obote leaders were killed because of this. I don't want, even.
There was scare of politics.
Yeah, there was scare of politics. People were insecure. There was a mistrust all over.
Those of you who had to go to school, now the NRM has taken over and things. What was the picture of the education line in the country, the early days of the NRA?
It was not even affected so much.
Really?
People remained in their schools. Only that people who could come for holidays, you had your private life during holidays, but the schools were operating. Remember this system of transferring teachers from all those things, to me it was working. Education was not much affected, but education was designed by colonialists, I have to say, to educate the few. Not every family could go to school, could afford going to school.
Okay.
Not every father could take education as a priority. In the village, they could say, Mama, Baba, Soma. Then after 6 houses, you see another one going to school. So it was not for all, as we mentioned now.
Really, or most of our people embraced it later.
Later,
Very late. Some people didn't embrace it right away.
It was not affordable, by the way, including government grant aided schools. We are not affordable. Parents could not afford paying for 5 children in one school. We didn't have this UPE, Bonabasom.
Yes.
No, it was not there. So education was for a few. That is why you see, you know, I worked in the academia for long.
Education is
That's
your life.
why you see Makere was free because it was the only university. And by the time they sieve out to those first class students, they were already few. So it was free education at university, but in lower classes, it was not affordable, I have to say. I remember my father could pay school fees for the villagers there, a few families, and say, like want the village to be educated, and parents think, why is he
wasting money?
Wasting money. So it was not a priority whatsoever.
We are told of stories of roadblocks on the roads.
Yeah.
In the early days of the NRA, that wherever you would pass, they would check you from the shoe up to the kakaya.
I saw it. Not even in the early days. Throughout my life, I could see roadblocks. I thought it's the order of the day.
Okay, but we are told
Police
that
check.
the new government
maintained it.
Tightened a little.
Tightened it, especially the checking. But it started with the Obote people when they were looking for the vehicle.
Yes.
It was tightened. It was tightened. They could even open the baby's pamper to see. They could undress the baby.
To see whether you're hiding anything.
Anything, but also robbing away what you have, like a watch, like money, like what. So people could hide money so terribly and say, where is money? Sitting now. Okay, remove this, remove the veil, remove it, untie the hair, what? So they could reach an extent of undressing a baby, thinking that you are hiding money there. So roadblocks were the order of the day. Even after the early days of the NRM, roadblocks were there. They were removed later. So we didn't see it as a strange exercise. We could live with it. And you could have identity card.
How different was the new government from the others you had seen? Because at least by 86 you were around 15. You could now analyze things.
I could.
So how different was the new government from the history that you had seen?
One thing about, I remember about President Museveni's speech, we went to the neighbor and watched TV. And he said, women are wasted resources. I went to the dictionary and looked for the word resource. When he talked about that, it was my first time to pay attention
Why?
to government programs.
How good was that to your
It
ears?
was very good to me. Women are wasted resources. How are wasted resources? So you can be like this. And I started figuring out a future because I was a girl and I
So
felt
how
I was
did you
a new
understand
person.
it?
I understood that the previous people have been wasting us, and now the new people are going to make use of us.
Okay.
That's it. It was one inspiration that I didn't even know the meaning of resources. I looked for it and said, okay, that was in '86. There I came. Women are wasted resources. I really quoted it and it changed my life. I said, oh, so I'll no longer be wasted. When I grow up, I'll not be wasted, I'll be useful. And
how about
I
in
started
other
dreaming.
observations now? Reconstruction of the village structures and all
NRM.
government structures and other things. How different was the new government from the previous?
The new government,
How did you start feeling it that there is now a government in Uganda? And what are the signs that showed?
The signs, when we stopped picking sugar from the LC, I don't know which year was it, because in the early days of the NRM, we could go to the LC and line up for sugar and say, "Tufunyeyo kilo bili," then you go home. Then they could tell us,
would you line up buying or it was for free?
No, we were not buying.
It was government supply.
Government. But now rich people could say, may I have money, sell to me? And the LC says, I don't have even what to sell. Each family should get. So we could line up, and now mother could tell us, you go about 3 of you so that we get more.
6 kilograms.
6 kilograms, and they could give whoever goes.
Corruption.
But later, the Muluka man could say, you are from the same family. Wait there, when the whole village gets, that's when I will.
You will get an addition.
Kati, when we stopped that line, he said, sugar is there. If you have money, go to the shop and buy sugar. That's when we felt the impact. That,
Okay.
oh, so it's over. But again, there was currency issues, which I learned, which I understood very well.
Actually, tell me about that currency issues. You are a university lecturer, very exposed at that level.
I'm really exposed.
Thank you. I've had so many people complaining about that change of the currency. And
Change of currency.
Some people say I had 7 million and they gave me 20,000.
I
had 3 million and they gave me 3,000 shillings. What exactly happened?
I think it was a project that really, things could not work out. Because when we were explained the way it was, they were telling us, omutwalo ofuna chikumi. You get 100 shillings out of the what? In exchange of 10,000. Now, in the previous currency, 10,000 was buying a kilo of meat, 1 kilo.
Okay.
And then they say you'll get 100 shillings in the 10,000, but the purchasing power
Of the 100 shillings.
of the currency will be high. So when you get 100 shillings, it will buy you maybe salt and what and what. But you need to pay 30%. You are not going to get 100 in full. They are going to deduct 30%. I don't know.
If you're to take 10,000 shillings,
They give you 70 shillings.
if you get 10 shillings, if you're supposed to get 10 shillings, they would give you 70.
7. So instead of 100, they give you 70. That one I saw it. I saw the exercise taking place. But it worked for some time when like the currency was a bit heavy. It could buy maybe a kilo of sugar plus some few things. And they could say, you remember the 10,000? I could only buy it. But now I've bought a half kilo of meat and this and this. But it lasted for a short time. It didn't work. That economics was not there,
Okay.
according to me. It didn't work. It could make the country collapse. They changed, but now the purchasing power of the currency again it became very, very, very light and weak.
We are winding up 39 years down the road.
Yeah,
If you
that
put
is
the
painful.
results and the pain on a weighing scale, do you think it's worth it?
It is a sacrifice that is well appreciated. People sacrificed, but you know, there is an imbalance. That
How?
people who suffered were not paid enough. That's my cry.
You explain that, Harriet.
When you buy sugar at 10,000, even in Medekalema, we buy it at 10,000. The school that was bombed because of that, it is still in Ramshako. That is it. And you find an area which didn't fight, where there was no war, having very good schools.
Okay.
My submission would be that if my word was final, I would have set aside a fund to rehabilitate the Luwero Triangle area.
Luwero Triangle today has a whole ministry.
Yeah.
Actually, not today. All along, there is a
I'm
whole
saying
ministry.
a fund.
Yes.
I'm saying a fund, whereby the schools in Luwero should be of a cheaper fees. The hospitals in Luwero shouldn't be the same as that one. And we give it like 30 years to grow, because this is an area that lost human resource, which is very difficult to recover. And people sacrificed life, but we had to recover by force. Nobody could listen to Munange, Tata, until when? You are going to tell that story until when? Yeah. If you don't go to school, that's the end of you. But even going to school was not very possible. So I'm saying there would be a special treatment for the inhabitants of that area.
Because of what
in
they
terms
went
of
through.
social services, like schools and what, and then we deserve to be given special treatment in terms of public service, and say, okay, we have to, but also these people must get. So as if...
Do you really see that work?
It's my dream. I don't know how long it will take, but it's my dream to give a special consideration to the war-affected people.
You have leaders in those areas at all levels.
Yes.
Just like any other area. You have different people, different categories, all the structures of government that have to do different things.
Yeah, we have.
How have they helped the community to develop?
They can't help. Those people cannot help. Because if you have, for example, a town clerk will come from Busia and takes off and Wakiso.
Yes.
I mean, how do you tell him that? That's a civil servant. If you have an RDC, he will come from Bundibujo and takes off Wakiso. And there is no consideration saying that, Bambi, these people, since they were affected by war, let us study their issues. So for us, our work is to propose, but we can't dictate. We propose that a special fund be set aside to really help people who are affected by war. Because this war, when it affects you, you cannot recover so easily. People have now sold their land because they can't even afford medication. And you say, but I have no food. That's the thing. My children were killed and the grandchildren were killed, and I'm aging. And you are saying, don't sell the land. So
that's all I have to save me.
It's all that I have to serve me, and they're even exploiting me. The thing is, we need a special fund to help people who are affected by war, especially the war where life was lost, to liberate others. We are not envious of other people who are not affected by war, but we are saying we cannot run at the same pace.
Thank you so much, Harriet. What would be your message to Ugandans on this celebration?
My message to Ugandans, we are really, we are sorry for ourselves. We just found ourselves like this. But Ugandans, fellow Ugandans, there is nothing like bad peace, and there is nothing like a good war.
Okay.
When I hear about Ukraine, Palestine, I can't compare myself to that, but nothing like bad peace, and there is no good war.
Thank you
so
much.
No amount of pressure should drag us into war anymore.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Her name is Harriet Shekat Radhia Namakula. She is from Mende, where they were affected by the NRM war. We call it that, the NRM war, because it's the war that brought the NRM Bush war, actually. That's how we refer to it in Uganda. But it's the war that was fought from 1980 up to 1986 to change how things were in Uganda.
Yeah.
She was affected there as a child, displaced, lost a parent in connection to that, and other family members, friends, and things like that. So we had to share a story, at least from somebody who is not in a very big position. Normally, on such days, we interview people who fought. Today, I wanted to talk to someone who was part of the war at a lower level, and at least we have scored it. That is what she had to share with us. Thank you so much for watching with Davis Kamukam and the whole team. Wish you the best of the evening and the weekend. Bye-bye.